Yeah. Or attempting to predict it, but I believe you said from what... Oh, and never mind, they're off. Aha! We tricked you.
We tricked you.
Yes.
You thought you were going to get breakdown analysis.
But yes, but from what rough experience on the spreadsheet shows, they are not what the official challenge is. I believe Diggle is safe if he loses it and will still make top 8, but Reggie is still at risk. And for those who don't know, Boosh Coals is basically... Oh, and that's Wave Beam to start off.
Wave Beam to start off. Very, very interesting. They're still going to have to snake their way into Chozo, but that is a nice item to have in the beginning because it does mean as soon as they get stuff like Space Jump Boots, they'll be able to check Tower of Light and such as they spy main PBs under the ship.
Yes. And hopefully I don't get interrupted by main runners again before I can explain what Boosh is. It's basically a measure of how well the people you have won and lost against did in the tournament. And this is basically just used for tiebreakers in the tournament to decide standings.
Yeah, and it does look like that if either one of these lose, they will mostly be safe for top 8, but depending on other people, how other people do, they could have a chance of not making it. So whoever wins will for sure be in top 8. Whoever loses will probably be in it, but not for sure. So fairly high stakes for this race.
Yes. And plus, even if they both make it in, that's still a foreshadowing for how top 8 will actually go.
Yeah. It looks like there was a bunch of missiles, although the pixelation, I'm not quite sure, over there in Main Plaza as they both make their way to Hive Totem. Hopefully not triggering the fight.
Yep. Again, commentary stream. You guys have heard commentary stream complaints before.
It's in Flash.
Yeah.
It looks like we've got a missile up there and ruined not nursery. I forget what that one's called.
No, I think that is nursery.
Is that nursery? Maybe it's the next one, I forget.
Ruined Nursery is the one with the giant elaborate morph ball bomb puzzle, and Gallery is the one with the double items.
Gallery is the one I always forget. Either way, it looks like we've got a bunch of missiles and an energy tank.
Hold on, that's... Oh, never mind. I thought that was an E-Tank on Hive Mecha, which should be impossible, but nope, it was just missiles.
Boy, wouldn't that be a plot twist?
Yeah, this scene is actually impossible. But yes, the reason that's...
Diggle finding his morph ball in ruined... not nursery. Okay.
Gallery.
I already forgot it. Gallery.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ruined rooms in this.
There are too many ruined rooms. Yes, but the reason it can't Hive Mecha can only have one of 3 items. It can only have missiles, morph ball, or space jump, and that's because due to the way these tricks and starting locations worked out, Hive Mecha will always be the runner's first item, and so it has to be an item that will open up another check. And the only 3 that can do this at this stage in the game without random elevators or random starting location are boost ball or morph ball, missiles, and space jump.
Diggle not liking the missiles he sees there in Ruined Shrine. You're going to backtrack, probably heading to mid-Chozo with his morph ball at this point. And I believe if Hive Totem is morph ball, that only opens up landing site, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that is true. That was was basically referred to as 1.3 troll start back in the day, or 1.0 troll start.
Yeah, and because they spied that being power bombs, we knew it was either going to be space jump or missiles. Diggle electing to head back down to Talon, as does Reggie. So it looks like they're going to need some early artifact checks, as well as some root cave transport tunnel checks as well.
Yep.
Probably going to dash over to crashed frigate crash site as well. Diggle, both these runners having pretty much the same route, but Diggle has pretty much had a lead this entire time.
For as much as that means in Rando.
Right. This early on, it doesn't mean a whole lot, but if the seed does continue to be linear, then movement is really going to be what matters here.
Yep.
Right now, Diggle is definitely winning the movement race. That could change. These runners are both pretty much at equal levels, so we'll see how it all pans out.
I'd say Diggle's a lot more experienced, but Reggie has been a runner that has improved rapidly in like the few months that since he's joined. So
You say a lot more experience as he gets stuck underneath the morph ball.
I mean, I said he has experience. I didn't say it was good experience.
We do have
Looks
some
like that
slightly
is
rough
a-
versions here.
Looks like that's a visor in frigate crash site.
He's got to do a pretty elevated jump here to get it. Doesn't
Yeah.
look like he's going to do it, actually. Or maybe he's just going to try to
I think he's going for the scan dash. There's two ways of getting it: the scan dash and the slope jump. And looks like he made it with the slope jump or scan dash.
Does get
sorry.
the slightly better of the two visors. X-ray, if OP does end up being required, that will come very much in handy.
Yes.
Reggie, on the other hand, is immediately beelining it for Artifact Temple. It does look like there's something down there.
Yeah.
And will be the first to get the artifact hints should he decide to check them.
And that's Phazon suit.
That's one headache eliminated.
Yep. That's. We will not be having any Phazon suit hunts today. No, sir.
Yeah, DiggleWrath about to get his. We'll probably see him high five here in a second.
Yep.
Oh,
and
we got
Uncle Reggie checked
Artifact
Ruined Courtyard.
already.
Yep. Looks like Reggie's pausing to write them down. MQB.
Ruined
That's a
Courtyard.
fun one. Furnace.
MQB, Furnace, Ruined Courtyard,
Short
was
Tunnel.
before Short Tunnel.
Fungal Hole Access.
Fungal Hall
Not too bad,
Access.
considering there's MQB in play.
On his way to MQB.
Plasma.
Processing. Ooh.
Good to see you, Cancer. We missed you.
So that X-ray is going to come in handy because by the time you get to MQB, OP and Uncle Reggie not too happy with those checks.
Yep. You see, Diggle, this is what we call revenge.
At the expense of Reggie also having to deal with it.
True. We apologize, Reggie.
Yeah. X-ray does start to come in handy because even though there are no artifacts on something like Omega Pirate or right past him in Phazon Processing, or no, the Phazon Processing access. No. I forget. Anyway, that room behind OP. Omega Pirate. X-ray does come in handy because it does make more sense to go through him as long as you can one cycle as opposed to backtracking through lower mines. And so it does make that a little bit more quicker as long as you do have that X-ray, which Uncle Reggie's about to get here.
Yep. Although, considering it's MQB, that also means super missiles are required. So that is another item that can be in a lot of locations that our runners will have to find.
Essentially, super missiles can be in any location that are not super missiles locked, or charge locked, which is not an issue here.
Yes.
And that's a lot. It's a lot of places.
Yep.
So in a seed where it gives you Phazon for free, super missiles could be our troll mode item here.
Yep. And we have certainly seen super missiles troll so far in this tournament.
Yeah, right. As DiggleWrath gets another potential troll mode item, bombs, morph ball bombs there. So it looks like going to Talon instead of back Chozo without those bombs was a decent play on both runners' part here.
I don't think they had many other options at that point.
They did have a few because they had morph ball and missiles. They could have checked
True.
Waterfall. They could have checked the checks on the way there. But it is usually a better idea to go that direction with bombs than without, because when you start to get to like Burn Dome and things like that, that's hard luck territory. You don't want to go there without bombs territory.
Yep. Plus, it's still always nice to get hints early on.
So Diggle's still winning that movement race. Although it is worth noting that I don't think Diggle actually checked his artifacts. He scanned them and is probably going to end up checking them when he gets to a route divergence point.
Yep. is an active subject of debate in the community. When is the best time to read your hints? Some people like to read them immediately. Other people will wait for a big routing decision.
Where do you tend to? When do you tend to check them?
It's really weird because I basically have like opposite decisions. In casual races, I will generally tend to just check them immediately, but in tournament races, for whatever reason, I've held off on checking them for a while. Basically, this is just because I write them down right afterwards, and so basically I like to have a nice long period of cutscenes right after I check them, just so I can have time to write them down. So basically, if you see me checking hints before I do Zoid, that's why.
Gotcha. Both our runners going towards Hive Totem again to check that one more item in Ruin Gallery that requires bombs. And Reggie catching up some time as well because Diggle went in to check the other Ruined Shrine item, whereas Reggie did not. So Reggie's catching up a little bit here. Definitely going to make that time up whenever Diggle does check his artifacts.
And of course, we are blessed by the glorious Beetle music.
Of course.
Thanks, Diggle.
Thanks, Diggle. I'm definitely in the camp races or without races. As soon as I scan those artifacts, I do essentially what Reggie did, is pull up my book and check them really quick. And I use this nice little voice to text app to I speak the locations out loud and it auto notes them for me.
Yeah.
And so that way I just always have that list. And as I go through the routes, I tend to just route, if I have options, to just route where the artifacts are and hopefully find progression along the way.
Yep. Well, like I said, active subjective debate.
Where do you decide? Say in the live chat. Diggle's making his way to Vault as we.
And don't worry, I'm sure you will convince everyone with your passionate arguments.
I hear that arguing on the internet yields great results.
Wait, I think that's something important to Vault.
It's either flamethrower or super missiles.
Again, commentators.
Maybe Wavebuster?
No, it's definitely one of the red ones. Ah, it's the validator.
RIP validation, locked behind too long of a check.
Yep.
Reggie skipping out on it as well. This is how we know that no one really will win this race.
Clearly. I was about to say, well, in these situations, it's always Diggle who wins the race, but never mind, Diggle's racing. He's not the seed generator.
Not today, Diggle. Not today.
I believe it was Sasquatch who volunteered to generate the seed. So
shout out to Sasquatch.
Yep. Thank you for filling in.
DiggleWrath making up some of the time he lost by doing Shrine because Reggie's doing the Shrine check now. Also able to make that two of the checks instead of three because they don't have boost or space jump.
Yep.
And Diggle will be the first to see what's going on in Watery Hall area.
Reggie pulling out some nice bomb jumps to speed up some movement in main Chozo Plaza.
Bomb jumping and scan dashing.
Yep. There's a lot you can do in this game with just a few simple tricks.
Cue the Geico. It's so easy, a caveman can do it. Commercial. Alright, so we got one more check here, and unless it's Spider Ball, that's where it will remain. Not Spider Ball, but it is a nice Varia suit.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the runners will take that at this point, as without random elevators, they are very constrained in their routing until they get Varia Suit.
Yeah, without a thermal or ice beam or gravity in the picture, it was very, very much Varia or all of those. Yeah. And Diggle does find Varia, so we'll start to see, as Uncle Reggie's making the same play here, where they decide to start to go to Magmore. We'll probably not see Flabra right away due to that.
Yep.
So we might see some major route divergence coming up in the next few minutes or so.
Looks like Diggle's climbing up Gathering Hall.
Yep. Good old non-space jump Gathering Hall climb. As a note, because DiggleWrath is electing to use the Fusion Suit, which is a little connectivity bonus from Metroid Fusion that's automatically enabled in Randomizer, Reggie is automatically the winner in my book because he's not using that. But we'll see with official results if that mirrors.
I mean, hey, Diggle managed to dodge Vomit Suit, so that's a pretty skilled trick.
You say that, but he's having trouble climbing this room and allowing Reggie to catch up.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Who knows?
We'll see. Once you remember you have Fusion Suit, that's when the gameplay starts to get unfortunate. Unclear with Reggie, but both of our runners likely heading to back Chozo to go where everyone's favorite mini-boss, Zoid, or more officially known as the Incinerator Drone, is the king of RNG. And they're going to see if there's any progression back there.
Or if it's just double missiles, as usual.
Yep. And Reggie pretty much in the same place, using Diggle's falling to catch up there. So, hot on his heels, pretty much made up all the movement time loss. And he still has artifact checks in his brain, so...
Also, looks like your comments about Fusion Suit made chat very upset. You might want to start rolling lives.
I'm used to it. I'm a strong advocate of not Fusion Suit, and I don't care what the rest of you think. Because I'm right and you're all wrong.
I'm just too attached to my pauldron and hate Vomit Suit too much to use Fusion Suit too often. Why did they think Vomit Suit was okay?
They tried to fix it in Samus Returns, as Diggle gets a grapple beam behind Burn Dome.
Yep.
Still, bad suit overall. Vomit Suit definitely the worst. All suits still bad.
Grapple Beam is not too important for our runners, as most places that traditionally require Grapple Beam can be skipped with tricks that I believe our runners know. However, this does still give some backup options and gives them some indication on routing.
Yeah, I will say, I think the hardest trick, I know for me personally, and I think most runners would probably agree with this, to skip grapple on would be the room not too far from here, Magma Pool.
Yeah.
It requires very precisely far scan dash, or otherwise Gravity Suit as a backup.
Yep.
Gravity Suit not being in play here, I don't know if we'll see either runner go for that. Although, since they both have grapple, it might definitely be in play now.
Yep. And Power Bombs and Wave Beam. So,
and
I
X-Ray.
could definitely see them making that play. I don't believe X-Ray is logically required.
It's definitely not, but it saves a Power Bomb.
True. True. And we all know that Power Bomb RNG is cruel mistress.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah, it is worth noting that Wave Beam, excuse me. Yes, Wave Beam is what they got in Alcove, and so I believe it's not in Logic yet, because neither one of these runners have Space Jump or Boost Ball. So it's something they have to consider. Usually means you'll find something like Space Jump early, but I haven't seen it yet.
Could also just be Boost Ball. As surprise, surprise, Goalie is actually a room that exists.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Goalie.
Honestly, that's one of my favorite rooms in the game. I'm sad I don't get to see it that much, but because I don't, I've even forgotten the name of it.
It is actually used for fancy out of bounds without space jump if you want to. If you for getting Arbor Chamber without space jump.
Hmm. See, no space jump runs have never appealed to me in any way, shape, or form, and so I've never really.
Speaking of space jump,
thankfully we'll not see too much more of that now because both runners are about to have space jump runs. will definitely make Flagra a little faster and easier if either of them decide to do that.
Yep.
But given how loaded they are at this point, at this stage in the game, probably going to see that be skipped.
Yep. If there's a boss we're gonna see, I think he was in the title card. Looks like Reggie is electing to not continue in further into Chozo, while Diggle is. We've got an interesting round divergence right here. And,
it's one of those
artifact up there.
It's one of those things where Reggie thinks he might be able to route that artifact back in later. Because Reggie knew an artifact was in Upper Furnace, and so decided to just go after that, whereas Diggle did not, decided to try to get it while he was there. So he didn't know that because he didn't check the artifacts. Just another reason why checking artifacts earlier is a smart thing to do.
Yep, and now Diggle gets to have fun with the best bomb jump in the game.
And by best, we mean worst. This is a bad trick. This is a bad trick, and it should feel bad.
Yeah. The rest of the climb is not too bad, but the last bomb jump at the end is just pain.
Yeah.
Oh, looks like Diggle got him on his third try, which is honestly pretty impressive.
And Reggie does make that magma pull check. First one is just a missile. I think if we do see a boss, it will be Omega Pirate instead of Thardus because of that Metro Quarantine B.
Yeah, I think we're very likely to see OP in the C. And that is Gravity Suit in Training Chamber. Which, while the runners can't grab that right now, that is a good little piece of intel that Reggie has.
Yeah, and Gravity Suit, for the most part, is not required unless you have to make some checks in Crashed Frigate. Hydro Access Tunnel in particular is very difficult to get without Gravity Suit. It requires a very fickle boost trick to do without it. The other two are a little easier, but still very annoying to get without Gravity Suit.
Hydro Access Tunnel is actually, I'm sorry, Cargo Freight Lift without gravity is actually dev intended.
The first one is dev intended, yes, but I believe in randomizer logic, they don't even put that in logic.
Yeah, it is out of logic just because name a single person that wants that to be in logic.
Diggle when he generates seeds.
True. I would be surprised if he... Yeah, that does.
So Diggle, I believe, did not check Crossway with his wave beam there, and now he's finally checking artifacts as well since he has the one.
Reggie checking Tower of Missiles.
Tower of Missiles.
Looks like he is electing to do the climb.
Yeah. This is one of those other decisions you have to make, because the climb he's doing is quicker to get the item than just triggering the cutscene, but triggering the cutscene lets you spy the item faster. And so it's whether or not how much you think it's going to actually be something, and you want to determine what to do here.
Considering it's one of the rarest checks in the game to actually have something. Yeah, who knows? Considering due to the way the item logic works, it technically doesn't just requires missiles, it requires 8 instances of missiles to be placed throughout the world.
Yeah.
As the only check that requires more than 5 missiles.
So, Diggle now the one trailing behind, but does have an artifact. It makes who's in the lead and who's not very nebulous right now.
Yep.
But it does look like for the time being, the new checks we'll see from our perspective will mostly come from Reggie. Checking the tree while he's here with the X-ray, seeing that it's a missile, and then going to Talon, probably going to try to route in Root Cave and then Magmore. We'll see if Diggle decides to do the same route or decides to go through Magmore through the front. After he checks Tower of Light as well. And I think because we're going to get most of the newer checks from Reggie, we'll switch the audio over to him just for now.
And because the runners have grappling, they don't have to deal with the root cave dash, which, well, I believe both of these runners are more than capable of doing. It is still something that can they can screw up and lose time on.
It is somewhat high risk if you miss, because you potentially fall all the way down.
Yep.
Go Reggie getting rewarded with that E-Tank. Probably going to do this out of bounds right here to get Arbor Chamber while he's up here. Unlike last year, out of bounds is allowed, while IS is not, without gentlemen's agreements due to hardware differences in the ways people can play. And this is probably the easiest out of bounds trick to do. And so you've seen it probably a few times during this tournament. You basically just have to jump up there and then jump basically around through a hole. And you get the super missile.
That's going to be big. I would say it's likely going to be the only out of bounds you see in this race. But I've said that before, and I've had to eat those words, so I'm not going to say anything. Except I did.
Both of these runners probably know other out-of-bounds tricks and know how to navigate the Aether out there. But in terms of what they're comfortable doing in a race environment, that is probably one of the few you'll see them actually attempt, if it makes sense, based on where they are and what they have.
Out of bounds, aside from Arbor Chamber and Exoskip, tends to be pretty niche tricks. They don't tend to be useful except in very specific circumstances, although I could see Training Chamber out of bounds being useful in this situation.
In this situation in particular, yes, if either one of them knows that. Diggle does look like he's going to the front of Magmore, although perhaps forgetting that lock door is open right behind him to do it.
Yep.
Alright, so we see an energy tank here at the middle of Magmore. Uncle Reggie making use of some nice dash points to try and get through that room fast.
Grabbing the artifact in short tunnel.
Yeah, so that will give him one artifact as well. Not the same one that Diggle has, though. So we will, in all likelihood, see the runners high paths in Magmore. And I'll go ahead and say,
Bit of
because...
well, this is poor timing. You go first.
Sorry, I think my internet cut out just a little bit there, but we will see them high five just a little bit. I think that Diggle's routing here is going to end up being slightly faster, although with Reggie having the supers, if Diggle does not decide to go out of bounds and check Root Cave and Arbor Chamber, that could bite him later.
I mean, we know MQB is required.
Yeah, and so they're going to be looking for supers, but where they look for them, again, it can be in so many places. Arbor Chamber is just that one sometimes that can just be out of the way if you get too far from it.
Yep. Especially considering it's a double elevator ride to go check Root Cave from Magmore. Some people might not go for it.
Yeah. So we'll see if Diggle makes that play. Both runners high-fiving right outside of Storage Cavern here. And while logically speaking, you don't need main power bombs to put power bomb checks in logic. Technically, you just need one power bomb. Having main power bombs this early really does put you more at ease because, as we said before, power bomb drop RNG not the greatest in this video game.
Yep, it's a solid 6% chance, and you can't influence it. Doesn't matter how many you have, how many you had last week, how many you're planning on having tomorrow. 6% and you're stuck with it.
What does matter is that there are very certain enemies in certain rooms that will usually always drop a power bomb. In fact, in some of them it's 100%.
Yeah. What I find funny about it is that they're almost all in Chozo.
Almost all in Chozo, some in Talon, some in Magmor. But if they know that knowledge and can route that in, if they did have low power bomb count, they could utilize that to sort of just chain getting one power bomb along and make use if they had just had one power bomb. Fortunately, it doesn't look like either runners will have to use that knowledge. So Uncle Reggie still eking out ahead here in the race to Phendrana after making all these checks. And Diggle looks like he's going to get the E-Tank, and then we'll see from there whether he goes to Root Cave or not.
Looks like he's going for it.
Yes, he is.
Looks like Reggie is going to be taking back the time lead here, as he is going to be heading into Phendrana, while Diggle still has to clear Root Cave.
Yeah, you're going to have to clear Root Cave. The only advantage Diggle has over Reggie at this point is that Powerbomb and Furnace. But Reggie might be thinking he'll be able to route that in later with other checks. Yeah, excuse me, the artifact.
Yeah. It's not that hard to assume that, because they know they're going to be heading into mines later, Reggie could just pop through the top of mines and then head through Furnace to grab there.
Right. And he might be wanting the Spider Ball to get it, to be honest. Maybe not being as practiced at Diggle at that insane bomb jump. Yeah. Especially in a race environment.
Yep.
So Uncle Reggie electing to first check, I believe it's Chapel of the Elders here. You need Wave to get in and out of it. Ideally, you want Plasma to do this as well, so you can check Chozo Ice Temple. Oof. Not quite getting the fast version of this tunnel.
Yep.
But sometimes you wanna route it in regardless if you don't think you'll be back for a while. So Diggle does get his supers.
Yep.
So the major advantage Reggie had for a few minutes there.
And that's Ice Beam.
It sure is. Prevent a save scum from happening up ahead while Reggie goes through labs, presumably.
Yep.
Very nice powerbomb kill with Shigoth.
Yep. And just standing on top of the item location to grab it in the cutscene.
Fortunately, not actually triggering another cutscene.
Yep. All item acquisition cutscenes have been removed, as you probably have noticed at this point. I think at this point, Diggle really only needs Plasma, and then he's in go mode. Actually, he needs to go pick up Ice, but we know that's probably going to be soon. But still.
Yeah, once either of these runners find Plasma, they're going to be in Schrodinger's go mode.
I think Reggie is still going to be searching for Spider, though.
He will, although I do know he's capable of bomb jumps. He just might not have been able to wanted to grab that in a race environment. Although if he does find himself in a position where he has everything else and he's near that room without Spider, he might give it a few attempts.
Who knows? It's looking like it's going to end up being a pretty close race.
Yeah, we will see. Reggie has... he's in discovery lead right now, but not necessarily overall lead. It's really going to depend on where that plasma is and if there's any major route divergence to find it.
Oh, actually, never mind. Our runners will be needing boost ball for plasma processing, unless they are planning on doing that insane out of bounds.
There is an inbounds way to do it. It is very fickle. But I'm not sure if either of these runners know that, so they, in all likelihood, will be looking for boost ball.
Yeah.
Reggie gets his second artifact in Ruined Courtyard. And begins to dip into mines. Not mines, nope, labs. That's the one. Still ways to go for mines. I think I confuse saying mines and labs a lot because they're both places I just try to get through as fast as possible.
I mean, they are the two big pirate areas in the game.
Yeah. I mean, and it's weird saying fast as possible when it's, racing here.
Yeah, you're trying to get through as fast as possible.
From a moral standpoint. you just want to spend the least amount of time in those places as possible, in my opinion.
Sasquatch making a bet. He's calling for Plasma Beam in Biohazard.
I can say that as someone who just did a seed with Plasma and Biohazard, it is quite bad. Reggie electing to just annihilate that tube instead of check it with his X-ray.
Very nice observatory dash by Reggie.
Yeah, doing a series of very, very, very precise dashes there to make that as quick as possible.
I'm just waiting to see which one of them makes the hardest move first.
I hope neither.
I mean, did you see that seed hash?
I did. But in my opinion, the seed hash is like that. Reggie almost triggering that fight. A seed hash usually just speaks to overall trolledness and not specific, like, Ridley. I don't know. It honestly doesn't mean anything, but it's headcanon.
It doesn't mean anything, but why should that mean? We shouldn't speculate on it.
Yeah, so Uncle Reggie almost going into that room too fast to avoid a trigger there that's right in front of that door to avoid flying space pirates coming at you from all directions, which in itself is not only a time sink, but then on top of that does trigger some layer changes in other rooms that make them a little harder to deal with. So hopefully we'll see Diggle make the same play if he ends up going for that room. Or he might actually do Thardus.
Well, that's one way to deal with the Metroid.
Yep. Reggie very quick to kill the bad meme. which relatable.
Fortunately, the cutscene where we all stare at the Metroid in the Metroid game was removed in the most recent version.
Yes, yes, it was probably the best feature to be added to this randomizer since the randomizer's inception. So without Gravity Suit, we'll likely see Reggie go through back Fendrana here through the intended path, more or less. We'll probably skip the necessity of going through Gravity Chamber, since he can likely do the dash and has grapple as a backup. It looks like down there might be... It looked like Thermal Visor to me. It must not have been, because I think Reggie would have gotten that. So maybe an energy tank or something. So without Plasma back here, he will not be able to check Storage Cave. Despite having Power Bombs and X-Ray. But we'll do that nice little slope jump to check the top of Fendrana's edge, grab a missile, and then head on down to Gravity Chamber. In order to X-ray it, he would still need the plasma beam to open the door to see through it. X-ray is only really handy if you don't have power bombs, which he has everything else, power bombs and X-ray, but not that plasma beam to actually open that door. Meanwhile, we see Diggle making a lot of the same plays, although his energy is getting very, very low. Probably will end up taking this safety save at the top of Observatory and maybe slow down a little bit just to make sure he doesn't die.
Who knows?
Maybe not. Diggle with the risky strats.
It appears he's learning from Viapron how to properly run through Metroid Prime.
I think you and I have different versions of properly.
Yeah, true. Properly, in quotation marks, since you can't see my hands.
Uncle Reggie wrapping up back Fendrana. Gonna put him right in front of Thardus. We'll see if he decides to check Thardus, considering he doesn't have Plasma Beam. He might peek into check Quarantine Monitor with that grapple beam.
Yeah,
But,
I imagine a check Quarantine Monitor at minimum.
I think the odds of checking Thardus without Thermal or Plasma are pretty low at this point, as he just R-jumps straight across that bridge. Thing about R-jumps, you gotta watch your distance, because you cannot change direction once you start it.
That being said, it's not like Plasmium on Thardus has ever changed the result of a tournament before. No, sir.
No, totally not. Totally not. Totally didn't change the final result of last year's tournament. Not at all. No way.
Nope.
It's worth noting a trick that Diggle just did and Reggie did earlier. Usually the check on top of a control tower like that requires Plasma Beam, but because you can actually jump on it in a very specific way, like both of our runners did. I didn't see what that check was on Reggie's screen a second ago, but you can actually get that item in control tower without Plasma Beam by just a well-placed missile, as long as those boxes are still there.
Yep, it's a very common thing to do. Even in any sense in vanilla, there's an artifact there that normally requires Plasma Beam, so doing that missile lets you pick it up on your first run through.
Yeah. And a lot of times, because it is actually a little faster, as long as you get it on the first try, than the vanilla method, you'll see runners do it even if they do have plasma beam.
I do it just because I like to say screw you to the seed.
And we are seeing Reggie skip Thardus.
Also, Diggle at 35 energy.
Yeah, he is, how you say, properly playing Metroid Prime?
Yeah. He's going for that adrenaline.
So hopefully Uncle Reggie will remember that plasma processing here is plasma. Not really able to check it anyway without boost.
Yep. Tickle not even grabbing the energy modules that the scarabs left behind. And he's taking the safety save.
Finally taking that safety save. As Reggie just did the same thing.
As well, so. They high-fived and saving?
That would kind of be a high five if this were other lesser Metroid Prime games.
Oh no.
But not this one.
Reggie's going for plasma.
He's either going for plasma or maybe just trying to go back to Talon, but hopefully, I don't know, we'll see.
I think there is the trick with power. Wait, never mind. He's just going for Talon. Yeah, never mind. Power bomb trick doesn't work since this is an ice store. Very nice R jump to get across Twin Fires Tunnel.
Yeah, and is going back to Talon. Maybe going into the back of Chozo through Crash Site. Maybe, hopefully not doing Frigate without Thermal, but maybe having his suspicions about something like a plasma biohazard containment. Be interesting to see where Reggie goes from here and where Diggle decides to go. It is worth noting, and this was actually a mistake I made in my routing while facing Reggie, of all people. One of the reasons Reggie didn't go into mines from the back door is because logically that is a point of no return if you do not have Spider Ball, which neither runners have found yet. And so Reggie, probably just trying to follow the logic here instead of just trying to check.
Out with X-ray though.
With what?
With X-ray. I believe there are some invisible platforms you can stand on.
You still need the Spider Ball to get to some of those platforms.
That you don't technically need.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of ways to climb it. It's a mistake I made that I didn't lock myself in there. I just sort of wasn't thinking logically. But yeah. Reggie definitely was, and definitely is right now, as he maybe hits the back of Chozo.
Yeah, I'm guessing he's going for rear Chozo. It would make sense.
So unless Diggle does Thardus, we'll probably see the same play from him.
Speaking of Spider Ball, that's convenient.
Reggie puts mines back in logic. So with that Spider Ball, we'll see him route in that artifact he was missing.
Yep.
Probably up ahead, as long as he remembers that it's there. And then probably head to back Talon, do bar skip, and make his way towards mines. Yeah, Diggle does keep falling down these shafts here. Having a bad day, as someone in chat puts it. It's interesting. It's one of those points where after a bunch of sort of falling flubs like Diggle's experiencing, you start to feel a little behind when racing. And when you start to feel behind, you sometimes start making more risky plays. So, given that he's coming up on Thardus, I wonder if that's one of the plays he'll make.
Yep.
Definitely going to check quarantine monitor and see if he does Thardus while he's there. Uncle Reggie getting some nice cutscene overlap there to make this check as quick as possible.
Fun fact, internally also referred to as Chozo Bowling.
Yeah, you'll find that if you dig around in this code a little bit of this game, the developers thought they had such a great sense of humor when naming some of these items and enemies and names in the game.
Not really relevant, but I thought I'd just bring it up since we were there.
You know, it's as relevant as it's going to be.
It's a fun thing that I feel everyone who plays Prime should know.
It's a fun fact, you know. Go Reggie checking crossway an item. You would normally need boost and supers to get, although there is a pretty easy space jump trick that I'm sure Diggle and Reggie both know that they could have gotten that had that been anything worth getting. So it looks like Diggle Safari is making the same play, skipping Thardus, going through Geothermal Core, probably going to try to check back Chozo as well. As we suspected, Reggie routing in these back Chozo checks, culminating in getting that artifact he left behind previously, doubling back and likely going to back Chozo for one quick check. As long as it's not boost ball, then going into mines.
Worth noting that without boost ball, he will not be able to route in Life Grove into here, so that will be 3 checks that are being left behind.
And it's unfortunate to going to do the Great Tree Chamber check without boost ball, because those 4 checks are something, at least in my mind, you kind of just group together, right? And so when you get to a point like this where you route it, you're just like, okay, I can do Great Tree Chamber while I come back here. But then when you get towards the end of the game, if progression does end up being in Life Grove or Life Grove Tunnel, you kind of have to really rack your brain of just like, where haven't I checked? Or where haven't I been? And Life Grove can be a little fickle there. So it looks like we almost saw some route divergence from Diggle, going into Chozo from the front, but now electing to go through the back. Just like Uncle Reggie as he approaches to do a bar skip.
It looks like at this point, now that he has the artifact, looks like Reggie does have a definitive lead at this point.
Definitely has the lead at this point. It will take some route divergence from DiggleWrath at some point to get him back in all likelihood, or just, you know, a million tries at bar skip from Reggie here. It is worth noting we definitely will not see a reverse frigate play here, because to do that without Gravity Suit, which they neither have, you do need boost ball, which Reggie does not have. And even when you have boost ball, it's a pretty tough trick.
And Reggie is done with his bar skip. Very nice.
Go to the bar skip. Bar skip, one of those tricks where, and you can sort of tell from just looking at it, it takes a lot of practice to kind of get down. But once you have it down after a few times of doing it, you can more or less get it consistent. You can clearly see from Uncle Reggie's screen, the trick itself is somewhat inconsistent, but it's one of those where you definitely, the more you practice it, the more comfortable you do, and you can do it in stuff like races as Diggle gets his spider ball in Overgrown Cavern.
Fortunately, it's a very quick trick, so even getting it 11th try doesn't lose too much time.
Yeah, because the alternative is having to go all the way around and through Frigate. So,
Yeah.
given that Frigate's still not in logic without the thermal visor here.
And plus, even then, I'm sure we are all aware of the many positive opinions our runners have about Frigate.
You say positive, I say passionate. Uncle Reggie trying to show off a trick here where you can just hop right on up to the top of this, say hello to some conscientious objector pirates. As
they're striking.
Here.
Science team isn't paying them enough.
They saw Ivan's example and was like, you know what, maybe he has the right idea. Maybe we won't die if we don't immediately attack the hunter.
Yep. I mean, hey, if she can survive that morph ball, did you see what Science Team did to the guy when they attempted to recreate that? I don't want to see what happens with a person who can successfully do that.
I read the reports.
Yeah.
Alright, so we'll see a
For those
check
who don't
here.
know,
Looks like that is something.
Oh boy. Ah, there's our boost ball.
So with that boost ball, Reggie's going to able to pretty quickly here double back and boost through elite research and make those checks backwards instead of frontwards, which he was about to attempt to do, no doubt.
And for those who don't know about the whole Space Pirates and Morphball comment, there are some log entries in this game which detail the pirates' attempts at recreating Samus's equipment, and the experiment with Morphball did not end well for the poor pirate chosen as the test subject.
Yeah, they seem to do all right in replicating beam technology, not so much with Morphball. No, not so much.
There's nothing that Reggie could theoretically go back and check Life Grove right now. Wouldn't even have to do reverse bar skip.
He would not.
Training Chamber is also in logic now, which means Gravity Suit.
He won't have too many checks without Plasma here that he can do once he gets into mid and lower mines. He might try to check a few of them, and if those don't work out, backtracking into those, Life Grove might make more sense as...
Speaking of thermal visor, or speaking of Frigate, there's a little indication right there. Hint,
so with that thermal visor find, and knowing that Gravity is in Training Chamber, that does actually put Frigate in logic at this point. So that's something that hopefully, with them remembering where Gravity is, they'll maybe consider.
Coming up is a trick that just recently became a lot more useful, doing an infinite boost to clip into elite research from the back end. Previously, upper mines was one of the few areas you could only go through one way, but with the recent patch of 2.5, it was enabled so you can do upper mines in both ways. Plus, you will still see some runners doing it if they don't have Plasma Beam, as the only as security access is a pretty long room, and the only check in there requires Plasma.
Yeah. So as Reggie pumps this guy full of missiles and gets his last check in the area,
Diggle looks like he went back to check Dynamo, and alas, it was only a missile.
Unfortunate. Also unfortunate, not immediately knowing Diggle even has Spider Ball based on his model because he's using Fusion Suit.
Yep.
Now was some Raptor versions from Diggle.
Although fortunately for Fusion Suit players, one of the changes that was released in 2.5 was a new item with random that will pop up to show you if you have what random starting items you have. As previously, technically Fusion Suit was objectively worse in terms of gameplay, as you wouldn't know if you started with Spider Ball.
Now it's just objectively worse because of all the other reasons, so... And yeah, that's a Dynamo check is an example of Diggle probably feeling a little behind after following those shafts and maybe making some slight route divergence in terms of going back and going maybe a little against fast check density.
Yep.
Obviously not working out for him, but that could have been the edge he needed, and so that might have been one of the reasons he did it. Went out of his way a little bit to go check.
Yeah. Who knows? Flagra could be the right play here. They have super missiles. They have spider ball. They can do reverse Flaga, which saves a bunch of time. Although it looks like Diggle is not taking that option.
Yeah, it definitely would have been the gamble if Diggle had done that. And
yep.
I mean, plasma on random bosses is not unheard of. So
there's a reason some people disable Flagra.
Or Stun Chamber entirely.
Yeah. I think generally one goes with the other.
Well, especially in Randomizer, the way it works now, even if you do enter the room from the back, it prioritizes the Flagra layer, because if you do go through the back without fighting Flagra, normally in the game somehow, and go and do the ghosts, it will completely lock you out layer-wise of the Flagra fight, and you will just not be able to get very soon.
Also, Reggie jumping on the Elite Pirate to escape Elite control.
What a boss.
Previously, we don't even give eye contact. Now your face is a platform.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, brothers have no concept of honor. Back in the good old days, we gave every enemy a bow before we killed them. Yeah.
Well, technically, the pirate bowed this time.
True.
So Reggie's going towards lower mines here without plasma beam. There's 3 checks down here that could be plasma. However, it's a little bit of a risk, even though this is where the density is, because if neither of these are plasma, he will have to go all the way back out of here and look elsewhere for them.
Yeah. There aren't really too many places left that plasma could be.
Yeah, Frigate, I think, is probably your highest density after this.
Yep.
Which is probably why he's going for
that
it.
And Life Grove.
Life Grove as well, yeah.
Ooh, that is a very short maze.
Yeah, good maze.
I don't count maze squares, but I'm gonna call that one short.
It's low.
Yeah.
Very low. Alright, so at this point we see Diggle making the same kind of play here, going into mines, going to get his boost ball here pretty soon. And in all likelihood the thermal visor as well. Uncle Reggie. Risking super missiling those turrets, even though he was well within safety parameters there, doing the maze and killing the drone in the room previously. Yeah. There are some instances where super missiling that firing squad can crash the game. Especially if you don't do anything in that room behind you.
Although I do believe you won't ever encounter that in vanilla gameplay.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. Reggie taking a peek in MQA, and though, well, we couldn't see it, looks like he did, and he has determined it is not Plasma Beam. Congratulations, Diggle! Welcome to a Diggle Seed.
The grass is green. Now, if that had been Plasma Beam, despite it being probably the worst location for Plasma to be, Diggle getting his boost ball, it would have really worked out for Reggie, because there's a couple of artifacts easy to get down there.
Yep.
And then he would have just had to pop right out after Omega Pirate, go to Plasma Processing, and go for the end of the game.
Yep. All his remaining artifacts are Plasma locked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could very easily see Reggie just heading out of here, going for Life Grove, and then going for the Deus Ex Machina known as Gravulous Frigate. Wait, never mind, looks like he's going to check PPC first.
Yeah, checking PPC might peek down, just check. Well, I guess there's no reason to check PCA at this point.
Yeah. Unless you suspect the seed is broken.
Looks like he's going to get rewarded.
Hey!
And that'll put Reggie basically in go mode here, as he goes to collect the other 3 artifacts.
Yep.
So unfortunately, the gambles Diggle made, as well as some routing snafus, did not pay off for him. He still's got a shot given where he is if Reggie experiences a death or a major slowdown like Diggle did with those shafts. But in all likelihood, this is Reggie's race to lose at this point.
Yep. I think that is a pretty safe bet. He has got a pretty good lead, and Diggle would have to pull some major movement shenanigans to pull things ahead, or Reggie would just have to screw up a lot.
And it's one of those things in a race where if your movement starts to suffer, like Diggle did during that back Fendrana shaft, you really want to hope that you get route diversions, because route diversions at that point is what will get you to win. And for the most part, our runners have followed the same basic route here. There was no real major route diversions in which Reggie was able to pull out a first go mode at the very least.
Yep.
What Diggle did do was get that artifact first with that bomb jump trick, but because of the way the routing worked out, and Reggie hoping it would work out that way, he was able to go back and get it once he got Spider Ball without much of a gamble. And at this point in the game, right, where you have essentially what you need for go mode and you're doing artifact collection, you start to think of if things like Ice Spreader would be worth grabbing, those sort of auxiliary items to make Exo go a little faster. It's really going to depend on how good you are at doing final bosses without something like Ice Spreader. So someone like Reggie, who's pretty good, will probably not want to spend time getting something like Ice Spreader whenever he has consistent ice phase down in Exo. Likewise with something like Super Missile. And so it really depends on the runner. Typically the higher level you are, like these two fairly high level, you'll probably not see that play made.
I mean, I could see Ice Spreader is... It can basically skip an entire phase if you get it on the turnaround.
Yeah, it's super useful in Exo because you can just one-shot Exo with it. But it kind of comes down to like what they're comfortable with and if they think it's worth the time.
Yep, because it would be a bit out of their way to go get it. It would be 2 elevators.
Uncle Reggie doing very nice slope jump, where I have a lot of trouble getting it without thermal visor. And not quite able to get the combat dash off that pirate. Able to make it up by using his goth suit, aka Phazon suit, to jump off a little bit of a bubble there.
Yep. There's lots of ways to get across that gap, but that's one of them.
Mop of Justice in chat bringing up a very good point. Reggie completely forgot to get the artifact in MQB.
Oh.
And so if he continues to forget after this fight, that could absolutely put Diggle back in the game. There have been several instances, for some reason, so far of people in this tournament getting 5 artifacts, going to beat the game, and then realizing that they missed one. And this could very well be one of those cases. Diggle at this point, seeing that Plasma is not an MQA, hopefully will check PPC to get his and potentially put himself back in this race. As Reggie tries to get his 1 cycle with Plasma strats in for Omega Pirate. The very nice power bomb to cap that fight off. Now, it was brought out that he was pretty low on missiles during that period, so hopefully with these missiles he gets from the drop here, he'll go back.
Yep, looks like he's remembered. All that perfectly good worry for nothing.
The crisis has been averted. Fortunately, Diggle getting not as good of a maze as Reggie did. So we'll see Uncle Reggie do the spiderless PPC climb here as he rushes up to Magmor to grab that last artifact and plasma processing, and then very conveniently go back to his ship in the nearby elevator as he heads to final bosses. It's worth noting that backtracking after Omega Pirate like that, if you're playing not the original version of the game, depending on what rooms you go to and what version you're playing, that is where you would start to see some fission Metroids, which are just the worst enemy in the game. Fortunately, in the 1.0 version that both of these runners are using, they will not be worrying about fissions until Impact Core.
At which point they will be worrying about them a whole heck of a lot as Jack and Jill come out to defend their hill.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Fortunately, both of the owners are probably at a high level. Diggle finally getting his plasma beam in a backtrack down to lower mines, just like Uncle Reggie did. Both of these runners are at a point, though, where once they get to Impact Core, they can do a nice little slope jump towards the beginning, where if they do it fast enough and they get, you know, some good minor RNG, they can pretty much just avoid Jack and Jill completely, which is a name lovingly given to the 2 fission Metroids that first spawn in Impact Core.
And the best part is you can't even get rid of them because they respawn.
Yeah, Jack and Jill definitely do get replacements. The origin of those names is pretty interesting because in the out of bounds to do exo skip, it requires you, for whatever reason, to kill the first 2 Metroids that spawn. And then the Metroids you manipulate are their replacements. And because you have to kill those first 2, they had other names before that, but Jack and Jill were names that were given to, in particular, the first 2 that you had to kill. Jack and Jill you have to kill.
Yeah. There are quite a lot of enemies that have unique names, but we need to like write them all down somewhere.
I'm sure there's a spreadsheet somewhere that someone's maintained where it's like, okay, Calvin's here, Edward's here, Ivan's here, Jack and Jill are here.
I haven't heard that one before.
Which one?
Ivan.
Ivan is the purple wave trooper at the top of ore processing. That's the conscientious objector. AKA the pirate that only war criminals kill. Ivan's usually a pirate that has a very specific and relatively small trigger that aggravates him in that, but it counts on you doing the spider ball puzzle to sort of snake your way up that room. With most runners of a nearly basic level able to climb that without hitting that trigger, you mostly just see Ivan standing up there, hanging out.
Yep. And I believe Edward is the pirate in Labs who is not very fond of Windows.
Not very fond of Windows.
Or himself.
Not very fond of being consistent either.
Yeah. I think Kevin is the lore-breaking hunter Metroid.
Which one?
The one in Fendrana that spawns in Frost Cave.
I didn't know that Metroid had a name.
I think, if that isn't it, I believe there's been some discussion about giving him a name, about how he went through all that effort to escape captivity, and where's the one place he went? Friggin' Fendrana drifts.
You know what? If it's not a thing, we can start it now, because why not? We name everything else. So, you said what, Kevin?
I thought you mentioned that was one of the names of the known named enemies.
Oh, I said Calvin.
Oh, Calvin. Yeah, never mind. I think some people have discussed Fred.
Well, you know what? We can do Fred. Let's have a poll, an informal poll. I don't have mod privileges in this chat. Do you want that Hunter Metroid to be Fred or Kevin? Whichever one you guys decide, we'll just start saying it in commentary, and hopefully it'll catch on and become officially unofficial.
Yep.
Uncle Reggie finally approaching Impact Crater officially with all 6 artifacts as he begins his Meta Ridley fight. Because both of these runners do have Boost Ball, it's going to be pretty quick once they get past this first phase where Ridley lands. They're going to shoot him a bunch with a charged plasma and wait for him to land, hopefully get what's called a flyby skip.
Also, Diggle at 1 E-Tank going into his OP fight.
Very confident, probably feeling behind, probably feeling that he doesn't have the bandwidth to save. So we get a double boss fight here with different bosses. So yeah, Uncle Reggie on the Ridley side of things, not getting that flyby skip, so it has to wait a little bit here for him to land. Once he does land, he's going to basically boost right into his chest, which for some reason Retro thought, yeah, let's make him weak to Boost Ball, which does 50,000 damage per frame.
I theorized it was for debugging purposes, just so they could buy it. Since it's a pretty long save otherwise.
Maybe, yeah. And it's definitely something you've seen more than once in this tournament, where fighting Ridley without Boost Ball, because Boost Ball isn't required.
Yep.
Before that. But it does make him really fast. So as Uncle Reggie's showing off much quicker than I can explain, once you get to this phase, it's basically charge shot to open mouth, missile spam the chest when you can, hoping you don't get a charge. Which he doesn't, because he lets off a super missile to finish it off. Diggle, meanwhile, very much risking a lot of things right now, is not able to get the one cycle, but is able to destroy and trigger the second cycle as soon as possible. He could very easily die, though. He is very close and has a lot of pirates in play after him. Oh, and it looks like he is not. He did not trigger.
Oh no! That's gonna hurt.
So it looks like the last time Diggle saved was at the ship. I am sorry
Oh.
in advance to the trackers for having to remember what he doesn't have. I believe this is right before Spider Ball.
Yep.
Immediately choosing not to forfeit, which go for Diggle. He thinks he doesn't know for sure of how far behind he is.
Yeah, props to Diggle on that. I know a lot of people have ended up forfeiting races for less.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Uncle Reggie is showing off that slope jump pretty nicely after a couple of attempts there on how to mostly skip the Fission Metroids if they are kind up here. And gonna head to first phase of the final boss, the Metroid Prime.
Also, in slightly more positive news, it looks like the unofficial official name for the Hunter Metroid in Phendrana Drift there were 5 votes for Fred and 3 votes for Kevin.
Yeah, so it's very interesting the lore behind Fred, which is the name we give the Hunter Metroid in back Phendrana, right? Metroid's canonically weak to ice, and yet hangs out in an ice place. It was reason enough for Retro to patch him out of that particular location, but on the other hand, it makes sense because that's the area he escaped in, so lots of discussion around Fred, which is the name we call the Hunter Metroid back there, but, you know, it is what it is.
Yep.
As Reggie makes quick work of Subchamber 1.
Wow, that was a fast Subchamber 1.
Essentially how this fight works, which Reggie's doing, there's 4 subchambers for this exoskeleton fight. In the first one, you can see by his coloration in the front, he will be weak to Power Beam or Wave Beam exclusively. And you can do a few tricks like, sniping at certain angles like he's lining up here to do to make the next ones a little faster and such. Now that he's in Subchamber 2, you'll also see Ice be introduced after Power Phase here. The next subchamber will introduce Plasma, and the 4th subchamber will have all 4 beams as well, but it will introduce a lot more RNG, as well as some interesting mechanics like him just going faster, and him randomly changing his color, and giving you an all-around headache. So even for someone like Uncle Reggie, who is very practiced at these final bosses, is making very quick work of Subchambers 1, 2, and in all likelihood 3 here. Subchamber 4 is where Exo can ruin your day a little bit. And some RNG can come into play, even if you are, for the most part, consistent at the fight.
Yep.
Probably the worst part about Diggle having to restart is where he is that he is having to do bar skip again.
Yep.
But the silver lining to what he's doing is that he knows exactly where to go and what to do at this point.
Yep.
And so can make up the time faster than when he initially did it in the first place. Meanwhile, Reggie taking care of Subchamber 3, entering the last subchamber where we will see a lot of that RNG. We'll see if Reggie can maintain his exo pace or if he just gets RNG bodied.
Very nice RNG manipulation.
Yeah, one of the best ways to mitigate the RNG in the Subchamber 4 is to do this technique that's used a lot in speedruns, where you can just manipulate him into always using his melee attack by getting a certain distance from him. And that'll significantly reduce the chances of him using other attacks, which, as you can see, is not a guarantee. Still able to get the snipes, though. Reggie very much showing off how his claim about being good at final bosses is no fib.
That was overall a very clean exo fight, although Exo did spend quite a bit of time on Wave Beam.
Yeah, Wave Beam's typically the worst one you get, even if you have something like Wave Buster. Wave just does not do overall as much DPS as the other beams do, especially when in power you have something like Super Missiles.
Yep. I mean, even by just without beam combos, Power Beam still actually does more damage than Wave Beam. Although Wave Beam does have the homing property, which makes it so much more of your shots will hit.
Yeah, charge power is easier to miss, but Wave Beam overall just does less. Overall good, though. He's now entering the final phase of the fight in fighting Metroid Prime Essence. This is why we need the Goth suit, the Phazon suit, because it gives you the Phazon beam to enter Hyper Mode, which is what he's shooting Essence with now. It's also why it's a good idea to get visors, even though they're not strictly required, because Essence is only viewable by one visor at a time and switches between which one it is. He's doing a technique right now, instead of just randomly pumping him with Phazon, called Attack Cancel, which is to get through his attacks as soon as possible by canceling them immediately, which would normally be used to trigger another Phazon pull as fast as possible, so he could just repeat the process. However, what happened there was he got a pull skip. There is an area above where the exoskeleton carcass is, where if Essence is too close to it, he will just not lay a pull. I guess, you know, they didn't want to deal with the graphical reasons for that. And so it's unfortunate that he got that, but he was able to get through that particular phase really quick and was able to resume his attack cancels here. And will likely, for the last phase, do a pull cancel, which is basically going in and out of the pull really fast, not using a lot, if any, of the actual pull ammunition, so to speak, so that he can burn through the last phase as quickly as possible. And just like that, Uncle Reggie wins.
Yep.
As that's a 126-33. GG's all around for Uncle Reggie.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see if Diggle forfeits
once he has forfeit.
I see. And so here soon, we will likely both get these runners in chat to join us for a post-race interview. And in fact, we have Uncle Reggie. Welcome. GG.
Howdy. Oh, thank you.
How were you feeling about that seed?
You know, that MQB art was kind of not great. But honestly, there were a couple really goofy spots where items ended up being. Like that plasma.
Yeah.
It was convenient, but also really goofy. Because I had dipped into MQA, peeked at it, turned around, and was like, all right, well, I'm probably going to have to route back to Life Grove, because that's the only place I could think of, or, worst case, go through Frigate to find it.
I'm betting you're wishing you just went straight from Rando Mines through Magmore.
Oh, man.
A whole lot of time.
Yeah, I am. It would have saved time, but honestly, it ended up playing out really well.
Yeah, you ended up making the smart decisions, and it ended up working out this time. For the most part, you guys followed the same route. Diggle did end up getting the upper furnace artifact before Spider Ball as soon as he was in the area, whereas you, I'm assuming, were just hoping to route it back in later, and ended up working out.
Yeah, I got lucky.
Diggle in here.
You ever just made every decision?
Oh.
Yes, I have several times.
At a certain point, I'm just like, I feel like I made every wrong decision here. And up to including not saving is the actual thing. I actually died on a Mega Pyre trying to get out through there because I didn't save and I got bullied a lot.
Yeah.
I almost died. I almost forgot the MQB artifact.
Oh god.
Straight up I made it to OP because I took a lot of damage in MQB and I was like, I just need to get to OP and get that fight done. and completely forgot about the art. Remembered because I looked down during the cutscene and I hadn't scratched out on my notepad MQB, and I was like, "Oh no!"
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
but the
both of you
e-take
individually.
drops helped.
I didn't mean
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt. I didn't mean to interrupt. But both of you individually definitely were cause for concern. Diggle being the only one delivering on that cause for concern by dying during Omega Pirate. But
Yeah.
there was rumors like, well, maybe he didn't have enough missiles to do a super missile because he was pretty low. But you did end up going back. For the most part, though, you guys followed pretty much the same route.
Really?
With Diggle, you got the upper furnace item immediately, whereas Uncle Reggie had to dip for it later. Overall, though, Diggle, since you're here now, what were any thoughts you haven't already expressed? Your thoughts on the seed?
Contempt mostly, but also, so once I found icing, I'm like, all right, well, I just go through labs and hope I find boost ball there to put that in logic. And I get through, I'm like, well, that didn't pan out. And then I did all Fendrana Edge, and I'm like, well, that didn't pan out. So I'm thinking, all right, none of this is in logic. So there's something that shows the depths, and it's either going to be Spider Ball, Boost Ball, which would be really nice, or Thermal Visor to go in through, well, not even Thermal Visor, actually, now that I think about it. But the point is, I would have found either Spider Ball or definitely found either Spider or Boost. And I'm like, well, I'm going to take the chance that it's Boost Ball, and that's what puts Fen's depth and logic. And I found Spider Ball instead, and I was very sad.
I was surprised to see Spider there because do we have for tournament settings the Hall of the Elders bomb slot without Spider?
Wave
do,
was
I
locked by
believe.
that. Wave was not locked by Spider.
Right, because it was in Overgrown Tunnel, but how I don't.
I believe that
Wave was
on
only on Space Jump locked, so
Yeah,
Wave
was.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, those two Spider Ball skips are in logic.
Okay, because
one
I
in
know
Hall of the
getting
Elders.
into Furnaces,
Oh,
I just couldn't
right.
remember if Hall of the Elders was.
Right, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you guys both found Ice Beam. I can't remember exactly, but pretty early as well, which sort of solidified.
It was Vanilla Wave.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So definitely within logic, but I feel like that's been in a few cases. I know it's definitely happened to me. Of just like, oh, I didn't think that was in logic, but okay, I have it now. Where does that, where does that leave me? So either way, despite the confusion, you eked out a win there, Uncle Reggie. That'll put you for sure in the top 8. Diggle still probably going to be in top 8, but his fate is no longer in his hands.
Yeah, it's all on everybody else's tiebreakers now.
Yeah. So good game all around.
Yeah,
Any
GGs.
final thoughts?
Also,
Yeah,
Diggle,
GG.
to your complaints about the seed, ha.
Yeah, I deserve this.
Yeah, there were some silly spots.
Yes, yes, there were. Any final thoughts before we wrap up here, guys?
No, just GGs and thanks to comms and trackers in Speed Gaming.
Indeed. Also, I did not make this, and yet.
And yet, yeah. So
Yep.
definitely follow both of the runners. DiggleWrath, Uncle Reggie both play a lot of Rando and are entertaining to watch.
Sometimes,
So I'm told.
At least in my case.
Every time I watch them, I don't know about that, but in general, I'm sure. Also, follow our trackers. They did an amazing job today, which I would not have done as an amazing job that I've been tracking, as well as my co-commentator, Robo Scout.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's going to do it for us. We have lots of races coming up throughout the week to finish out this final round of Swiss as we shake out who will make the top 8 bracket and whose race this will be the last one. So thanks again for racing, guys, and thanks for watching, everyone. We'll be back on a Speed Gaming channel soon. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.